Part 6. Truth. Many people will claim the word slave is mentioned 80 times in the South's Ordinances of Secession. But that number comes from all Confederate states combined. The first state to secede, South Carolina, mentioned the word slave 18 times. 4 regarding opinions of slavery or anti-slavery. 3 mentioning non-slave holding states. 2 mentioning slave holding states. 2 regarding the institution of slavery. 2 pointing to its use in the U.S. Constitution, and 5 miscellaneous references, such as Lincoln's half-slave, half-free quote. South Carolina's Ordinance of Secession has 28 paragraphs. I've condensed them for this video, but feel free to read the original ordinance to verify what I'm saying is true. Paragraphs 1 and 2 say, "We are going against the advice of other states, which you like to call slave holding, and have decided to withdraw from the federal union. Here is our list of grievances." Paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 serve to remind the Union why the U.S. withdrew from Great Britain in 1776, in order to govern itself. Feeling Britain's laws and politics were somehow destructive to the U.S., we felt the need to abolish them, declare independence, and write the Articles of Confederation, also known as the U.S. Constitution. With it, we could build our own system of government. Paragraphs 6 and 7 say, "We fought the Revolutionary War, and in 1783, Britain signed a treaty, recognizing our sovereignty. Therefore, the U.S. proved that nations, states, territories, or colonies, do have the right to secede from their mother country." Paragraphs 8, 9, 10, and 11 say the Constitution was written in 1787, but only 9 of the 13 colonies accepted it immediately. It took until May 23, 1788, for the remaining 4 states to accept it. An amendment, saying the states retained the right to be sovereign, was added to remove any doubt about states' rights. Paragraphs 12 and 13 say that deal was fully understood. Any laws not written for the U.S. as a whole were rightfully up to the individual states. Simply put, if everyone was not treated equally by the federal government, the state had the right to ignore the unjust rules and govern itself. Paragraph 14 says, "We feel that 14 states, within the U.S., have failed to uphold their obligations laid out in the Constitution." Paragraph 15 cites Article 4 of the Constitution, which says, "No person, held in service or labor in one state, can be discharged by simply escaping to another state." Many people will use this paragraph to imply South Carolina meant slavery, but service or labor could reference any contractual agreement. For example, someone says, "Pay me $100, and I'll fix your roof." So you pay them to get the needed materials, but they take the money and run, leaving you with no money and a leaky roof. That con artist doesn't get away by simply crossing state lines. And since there is no federal law addressing something like that, that state-level concern must be recognized to allow enforcement unrestricted by a state's boundaries. Paragraph 16 says, "Remember, Article 4 was written in 1788, during a time when many northern states held slaves, so don't give us any of that, the South was looking to hold slaves, jazz." Also, it specifically applied to the new territories that were adopted during the North's expansion into Ohio. Yes, the Constitution did right, we want to have slaves in the newly acquired northern territories. That's what the reference to slavery means in those paragraphs. Paragraph 17 says the rules also apply to a fugitive from justice. For example, someone who robs a store in Virginia doesn't avoid punishment by running to Maryland. Paragraph 18 reminds the Union that these laws were upheld, until recently, when the Union began to vilify the South. It mentions fugitives who were set free, just for crossing state lines. Just the idea of slavery has caused the northern states to completely disregard all other definitions pertaining to Article 4. The rest of that paragraph cites specific examples. Paragraph 19 quotes the preamble, "To form a more perfect union, establish justice, etc." Paragraph 20 says, "All states were supposed to have equal protection and equal rights, however a higher tax was imposed on the South. The additional taxes would account for the slave population. This additional tax serves as proof that the South was authorized by the federal government to use slave labor. It was a deal made by, and accepted by, the federal government." Paragraph 21 says that this agreement was broken by the Union, despite the fact that the South paid for it. Furthermore, the North has allowed protest groups to disrupt business in the South. Does this sound familiar? Today, groups like Antifa and BLM riot, burn, and loot while the Democrats do nothing to stop it. Instead, they seem to encourage and support them. Paragraph 22 says these disturbances have been steadily increasing for the last 25 years, and it implies the election of Abraham Lincoln was specifically to give the North the endorsement of the executive branch, thereby subverting the Constitution itself. Paragraph 23 mentions how the Union has granted citizenship to anyone who would willfully support the tyranny of the North. Once again, this sounds exactly like what's happening today, as the Democrat Party brings illegal immigrants into the country. Paragraph 24 says that the North intends to take full control of the government on March 4, and exclude the South from expanding into the West, aka the Common Territory, and start a war on slavery, which simply covers up their intentions to destroy the Southern economy. Paragraph 25, 26, and 27 say that the once fair Constitution will no longer represent fair treatment or equal rights, including the right for states to govern themselves, nor give them any voice in the new government. Effectively, the federal government has become the enemy of the South. We therefore dissolve all ties and allegiances to the Union, and hereby secede.